Okay, so hi everybody. Thank you, Pune Tech community and Nandeep to approach me on this topic. So today I'm going to present a short session on augmenting a Power BI adoption journey through Center of Excellence. Now, this topic is very close to my heart because I have been evangelizing Power BI throughout my organization, in my earlier organization, and recently in Microsoft too. Now I'm in contact with other organizations to drive adoption. So this topic is very close to my heart. Um, and through this topic, I'm going to share some of my experiences, some of the things that I've learned throughout all this 7 to 8 years of experience uh, working with Center of Excellence team. Okay, before that, my quick introduction. I'm a program manager at Microsoft. It's been just not even a year, I would say. I have joined the Power BI Customer Advisory Team. To quickly give you a view of what Customer Advisory Team does is it's a team, it's a product part of the product engineering team who is customer facing. So our product engineering team is literally the team which codes Power BI, which includes Power BI features. However, we as a customer facing team would engage with large enterprise customers to understand their way of adopting the platform. Okay, the reason being we have seen that Power BI being an interesting tool um, gets adopted very soon up to a certain level, right? Developers, users start using Power BI for visualizations, for small ETLs, or automating stuff, integration with Power Apps or Power Automate very quickly. However, they reach to a certain plateau, usage plateau, which we say, and after that, there's not much increase in usage. And you know why? Because there is no more drive for adoption in the organization. And there might be various reasons, and I'll explain some of them today, right? And that's why I thought, why not evangelize this topic specifically? Why a Center of Excellence team is needed in every organization to actually help drive a tool. And now I'm specifically talking about Power BI, but this can be true for any other tool. Okay. Uh, Good. Just to also add, I do have an experience of 13 years working with Microsoft Business Intelligence tool. I earlier worked with Unilever, with whom I was working in COE, and I was leading the team, Global Power BI Center of Excellence team from India. Okay, good. Now let me start with a small story, right? An organizational story. I think it can just when I talk about this, just think about your own organizations as such. If you are using Power BI in one way or other, right? An organization nowadays, almost every other organization decide that their data platform to be on cloud, right? Either AWS, Azure, or GCP, right? Now, I've seen that most of the organizations who have gone through cloud platforms would like to have a certain visualization tool. And Power BI has its great market share. So let's think this organization has declared Power BI as a strategic reporting tool, right? So now consider the reasons why they have done so. Maybe, as I mentioned, the organizational data strategies, cloud first, cloud only, and Power BI being a SaaS application, software as a service application in cloud, really makes sense, right? Now, feature wise, also Power BI makes sense. It's full of innovations, full of better user capabilities, better user driving features, etc. Right? Now, cost wise, also comparatively much more cheaper, though people might argue, but let's keep it aside. Now, because of this reason, Power BI have been adopted freely by many users, right? You have the desktop tool, which can be downloaded as a free software. And users can have a free reign to develop anything connecting to any kind of data sources they have access to. Now, they might not always follow the best practices, right? Best data modeling practices, best reporting practices. And this has resulted into more data silos, misuse of the tool, and poor collaborating ways. Power BI sharing Power BI file with one another instead of publishing in service, for example, right? Now, in an organization with time, definitely the reporting need reporting needs will be matured, right? But users remain unaware how to achieve certain scenarios, certain complex scenarios. Now, even if they are able to achieve complex scenarios, they might be hitting performance. Might be hitting performance. Performance is slow, is what I mean. Now, why is this? Because they are not implementing best practices? Yes. Why? They are not using the capability properly? Yes. Due to lack of knowledge, due to lack of awareness? Yes. But at the end of the tool, but the end of the day, they will be blaming the tool, right? Now, I, I would like to better highlight how these small issues, along with the bigger ones that I'm going to explain, lead to a lead to the motivation of building a COE. Consider um, consider uneven adoption. Okay, what is uneven adoption? Uneven adoption might mean that the people who are developing the reports are not in sync with the people who are using the reports. For example, I'm using a AI visual. I, as a developer, is using a AI visual in my report, making it more jazzy buttons, bookmarks, and all kind of jazzy stuff in my report. But the end user, if he's not aware of what are the capabilities available in the report and in the tool, how will they use it? Right? That's uneven, right? Uneven, the gap in knowledge. There has to be some force which maintains a low gap between the delivery and the consumption. That's one. There another one. The developers keep developing. They don't always have the time to understand that there are new features coming in, and we have to utilize that, and they have to utilize the features to better reporting, better utilization of the tool itself, right? For efficient usage, for performant usage. For example, direct query. Now they have been using direct query to different data sources in traditional ways. There have been in recent times a lot of enhancements in direct queries which can enhance performance, give a performance huge performance boost. If those developers keep to the old traditional ways of developing, they might not be using the tools properly. That's uneven adoption. Dysfunctional data culture. I think this is one of the major things that's almost all the organization are facing with, and every organization that I talk with come with this issue. How do I have a better data culture? I think there are lots of views that's already there in the internet. So I generally suggest go out, read out how people are doing, connect with people, how they are implementing data culture. But what does dysfunctional data culture means? Um, Consider in a very simple way. I'm having a Power BI report where I have only a table, and that table from that table I'm exporting data in Excel, sharing it with a third person, and that third person is again building a Power BI report on top of that Excel. So it's a vicious circle, right? Another example would be, and I didn't press it, sorry, multiple intermediate data sources, right? Data inaccessibility. I don't have access to the main data source. I'm using intermediate Excels. I don't know whether there are already data sets published in Power BI, which I can reuse, etc. And of course, which is also because of poor collaboration. I haven't shared the right report to right people, and of course, communication gaps. Another is misuse of technology. Misuse of technology is because of lack of awareness, as simple as that, because of untrained users, and of course also because of ill-disciplined users, because some developers may be knowing a lot but they might not be using the best practices. So I have seen developers who are very technically well versed, however they don't know even how to comment a code. They don't even comment a code in while they use the tool, right? Okay. For example, improper channeling of learning materials. How to proper channelize the learning materials. There's tons of learning materials out there, right? And I hope you agree with that. There's no dearth of learning materials, free or paid. However, why then people come back and say training is not? I need training. Why do organizations need training? Because there is no proper channeling or streamlining of training materials through proper personas of user. A developer who is just developing for our operational team is absolutely needs a different kind of training than a person who is doing a small ETL and very less uh, um, report development in Power BI. So, you know, um, proper channeling of learning materials is required. Delivering potential. Now, this is my favorite topic, because I, in my earlier organization, it's generally very hard to keep up with Power BI and the innovations that keeps happening in the whole Power Platform, right? Now, Power BI as a tool itself has seen a dramatic scope of evolution in its scope, right? There are new features that's being added every other month. Let alone there might be blog post in of new features every other week. It's very difficult to keep up. So there needs to be a centralized way of communicating all those new features to the end users or the end developers as such. Otherwise, if we don't harness those features right now, they might be losing time, effort, and even money to redevelop or rework on it later. And of course, there are performance issues later on if you don't keep adopting new things immediately, right? Now that we understand that these are the problems that our organization faces, who will resolve these problems? Is it the responsibility of the delivery team, developers, to know each of these things and then develop and then code responsibly? No, that cannot be. There has to be a separate team um, who can take over, the responsibility of solving these issues specifically. It has to be a strategic team who realize that independently resolving these issues will not work. They have to be resolved in one single bucket, because they are all interdependent on each other, if you understand, right? Now that is a major reason I feel a CO is needed. Now let me explain what CO is, right? Now this concept of center of excellence or center of expertise is has been in existence for a while now, right? Now when I say this, I would like to mention that Gartner has indicated that organizations who have a BI competency center approach are able to grow and develop much more easily, utilize their resource better, have more performant, and drive a data culture within their and successfully drive data culture within their organization. Now, while the COE concept you can call center of excellence, you can call center of expertise, etc., might be an old one, because we already know that the people, I mean, organizations did have business intelligence center of excellence approach, or any other center of excellence approach. It majorly helps in driving adoption for a single tool. Why? And now the question is, why for a single tool? Why not the whole business intelligence suite nowadays? For a single tool, because this tool is end user facing, right? It's just not for developers, it's for end users too. It's for super users, it's for analysts, it's for citizen developers, right? The number of personas that it reaches out to is huge. One. Second, the amount of data that nowadays organizations deal with is huge. That means each of the functions that a data platform has, data engineering, data science, data analytics, etc., has to be has to be managed in a better way. And now to manage in a better way, when I say this, has to be looked into deeply by a different kind of team. And that's why, as simple as that, Power BI needs to be looked into differently, right? Uh, Now, the concept of Power BI COE, when I say it's not a one size fit all. So when I explain the structure of COE in my upcoming slides, I would like you to keep in mind that when I, the structure that I mentioned might not be fit for all types of organization. Now, there are different sizes of organization that you work with. There are different teams that you work with. Their structure is different. Their org structure is different. Um, the the data strategy is different. Right? Based on that, I think the center of excellence structure might not is not a one size fit all. So within the organization, I think the leadership team has to sit and understand how their organization will look like. How can they drive adoption with or without the help of COE, maybe sometimes. Okay, good. Now, because I'm talking about COE, I am assuming that an organization is considering a COE. So let's look at the aspects um, to consider while an organization can plan for a COE, right? Okay. The first is the executive sponsor, and I'm quite sure you have heard about this. It's just not only for Power BI; it's applicable for any other tool, right? Executive sponsor who believes in the COE program, who is who is one of the key to the success of COE program. He or she has a strategic vision in mind on how the tool can become a success throughout the organization. The executive sponsor should have enough credibility, should have enough authority, influence over the leadership team to write. It cannot be any other person. It has to be a person who has experience in the data analytics, who knows how the tool can be leveraged for better data analytics in the organization, right? And to drive data culture. Absolutely. Now, then funding for a COE. Now, funding is a very important part for any kind of COE. COE is not a cost generating team, right? I mean, revenue generating team. Sorry, it's a cost generating team, but not a revenue generating team. That means people who are working in it don't necessarily deliver something. They are evangelizing the tool. However, they are not directly involved in delivering any kind of output, right? So it's kind of difficult to put up the funding for the business COE, and that's where the business case comes in, right? There has to be a very strong business case for funding the COE. It can be centrally funded, or there can be other kind of fundings available. There are different approaches available. How can funding for a COE can take place? Now, delivery and support strategy. Um, in a lot of organizations I've seen, because COE is a small org, um, they do take on delivery and support. That means within the COE, they take the responsibility of developing the reports by themselves, creating the data sets and maintaining the data sets, supporting the data sets as such. However, in larger organizations, maybe with smaller COE teams, they might not take on delivery and support, because delivery and support for different kind of business teams who are sitting globally in different locations might not be possible. So what does the COE team does? COE team is only to evangelize and solve the issues that I've mentioned in my previous slides. And and that's where I come in. Outsourcing responsibilities. Not all kind of responsibilities that needs to be done by COE has to be done by the team, right? There might be lack of skill set. There might be lack of people who has that vision, to run the COE program. So you might want to outsource responsibilities to, for example, managing the platform, managing the premium capacities, managing the gateways, managing the licensing, etc. Right? Good. Now, now that I've set what the aspects to be considered for planning a COE, let's have a look at the journey for a COE. Okay, um, the journey is as simple. Note that I've put up into 3 steps, which is foundation, stabilization, and optimize. But I would say none of the steps, in true sense, ever finishes. It's always a circle. I would rather show it in a circle, actually. So the foundation stage is something. The foundation stage is something where you understand the current maturity level of the tool, right? Suppose we are planning to start a COE. Now we need to understand what exactly is the situation of the tool in the organization. Do they already follow some rules? Do they already have guidelines set up? What kind of personas are we addressing to here? What kind of roles and responsibilities can a COE will have? Will it deliver reports? Will it manage data sets? Will it support the Power BI tool as such? So understanding the roles and responsibilities of a COE, it will then put up a charter or a roadmap or the vision and mission of the COE, right? And then, of course, trace out the go forward plan. What are the next steps? How do I put up a training plan? Suppose, do I make a training plan next? How to create more awareness, for example? And by doing that, we move slowly to the stabilization phase. Again, the movement is very slow, and but has to be steady, right? Now, stabilization is where you would like to have your COE brand flag throughout your organization. Your organization should know that there is a team called as COE, which is helping up in upskilling, in training, in evangelizing the tool. It's setting up the process which people have to obey to. It's setting up the guidelines which people have to adhere. And of course, it will also help in any way possible and support in any kind of delivery for the tool, right? Now, it COE team also needs to ramp up on research and innovation, right? So the new features that I was talking to, all of those features cannot be adopted by an organization. Let me tell you that there will be chaos if you adopt all the new features altogether. There has to be proper research, proper understanding whether each feature it can be adjusted, can be put up to a certain business team or not, whether it can be utilized for a certain business or not, right? And this phase this phase involves prioritizing and framing the whole structure of training, process, and research. Right? Makes sense. Of course, I also mean the best practices when I say training. Um, Apart from that, I think what I'm missing is also about governance and security. I think this is one of the major important topic that during stabilization phase organizations need to look forward to. Right? Okay, governance and security. Now, operationalize phase, or I call it optimize phase. Now, the previous phase or the stabilize phase doesn't ever end, I believe, as I mentioned. It always goes on because there are new features coming in every time. You have to keep on researching and innovating, and of course, update your process and guidelines, and then update your training and upskilling. There are a set of new users who are coming in the organization. There are another set of users who move from a, a, basic to an advanced user stage. So you always have the stabilization phase there, right? However, what I mean by optimized stage is now that you have at least some process, you have stabilized a COA, you will have some KPIs to measure your success, right? Now, up till now, I know, and I told you, CO is not a revenue generating team. However, how would you know whether you are doing well as a team, as a program? How are you doing well? So there has to be some measures of KPI, right? There has to be continuous business improvement. When I say continuous business improvement, it's about how impactful you are in collaborating with business teams, in making them successful to adopt Power BI and adopting the tool. And of course, how we evangelize and implement policies, different guardrails, etc. Right? Okay, good. Now, if I covered it correctly, let's see what are the functions of COE, the scope of responsibilities, right? Um, and this is very interesting because this I've seen this differs with organization to organization, but I'm trying to cover here a lot of the scope of responsibilities that I have done during my COE period. Right, running community of practice is at the top, and definitely that's one of the most important things, right? um, it involves training, upskilling. And when I speak of training, I very much want to stress upon training related to different personas. What are the different kind of users in your user community? There are only people who consume report, just operational report. There are people who just do analyze in Excel, right? They don't do much. There are people who are super users who like to look into the data set and build report, analyze and build some insights out of it, but not actually involved in data modeling. But there are people who are doing data modeling, right? Too. So what are the What are the training needs for separate kind of people, the personas of people that you are looking? What are the other awareness sessions that you are running? Is it office hours? Is it clinic sessions? How are you resolving their issues? Do you have a single support site? Do you have a remedy queue, for example, to and have a SLA associated with it? How are you doing it? Right. Platform governance and premium management, I think that's very important. Now, Power BI is a separate platform. It's a siloed platform when you have to manage, along with the licensing that you have to manage, along with the premium. If your organization has premium, you have to manage that too, right? How are you managing it? How are you monitoring it, auditing, logging, user? How are you tracking user adoption? Very, very important. COE planning activities. COE planning activities are internal activities within a COE. How are you tracking your KPIs? How are you carrying out your future planning, etc. Driving migration from legacy tools. I think this is one of the important program that COE overtakes, has to overtake. So suppose you some of the legacy tools, reporting tools you're using, for example, SSRS, for example, it might be MicroStrategy, it might be Tableau. If your organizations decide to migrate those tools to Power BI, I think CEO is the one who is better equipped to migrate rather than any other team. Right. User support and license management. How are you managing user licenses? How are you how are you allowing people to use trial licenses, to use PPU licenses, etc. Right. Premium per user. Research and innovation. How are you managing new features? How are you creating guidelines for on the new features, whether to use direct query, whether to use import mode, whether to use any other feature that's coming in? How are you evangelizing those features? Very, very important, and putting up guidelines accordingly. Architecture and delivery support. I think this is quite a different topic, because suppose consider a COE is not actually delivering, but it definitely has to overlook what others are delivering in terms of whether their architecture is okay or not. Sometimes they would just, I mean, for example, consider a team trying to refresh a report 48 times a day in premium. However, the source is only refreshed one time a day. If a source is refreshed one time a day, uh, why are you refreshing 48 times a day in your Power BI report, right? That doesn't mean anything. So such kind of review, architectural review, definitely needs to be taken care by COE, right? Good. I know there's no demo associated with it, lots of content, so I have kept very minimal slides. And there I come to the summary uh, uh, um, of of the whole COE. Now I'll spend about 5 minutes of time here, and then I'll open for Q&A. Okay, so let's talk about what are the, and this summary is actually with respect to what I have learned. So it's rather than key learnings from Swayam's working with COE. First is realize your key motivators to build your Power BI COE, right? Now, you might have a team who also might be have to be in the same line as this. Now, if you think that your COE will not deliver, not support, however, evangelize, run your community of practice or drive your community of practice very strongly. That has to resonate within all your teammates, or your team should know what your key vision for COE is, what the key vision of the team is, right? Your team, your integral part of COE must have variety of skill sets. You should have program managers, you should have platform managers, platform leads, you have technical needs and SMEs, who you need to have trainers, you need to have adoption leads, etc. So constitute your team and draft the scope of responsibilities accordingly. And that's where I have mentioned identify the skills and competencies required. Right now, the competencies a lot. along the lines of training are very, very important, because not all trainers, not all people can be, or SMEs can be trainers are people who connect with people easily. And I'm stressful on this fact because it's very important for the trainers to be patient. It's very important that they are pleasing it. It's very important that adoption leads go beyond measures to reach out to different business teams. And when I say reach out to business teams, just not only for adoption, just not only for evangelizing, but also to learn back, right? How the business teams are using Power BI. Are they using buttons, bookmarks? Are they using cross report drill through? How are they managing workspaces? How are they tracking adoption, whether the report is being used or not? Learn from them, right? And then take those key learnings into the next phase of planning, right? Recognize and track KPIs is very important. How are you recognizing, tracking or KPIs? Are you tracking through number of trainings that you have given, or are you tracking through the number of active users in a month, right? Communicate. I think I cannot stress enough how communication is important. Communication is important for trainings. Communication is important to create networks within business team. Communication is important to make people understand how COE can drive adoption, how COE can help them, make their reports performant, make their thereby making the platform a successful one. Believe me, uh, my previous organization had a very successful COE program, and I would not create myself because there are other people. There were a lot of other people's involved. It was a very successful COE program, and I state this due to the fact that with very less resources, when I say resources, licenses is what I mean. With very less resources, but more trainings, we could we were the largest implementers of Power BI in Microsoft. Okay, so that's how effective communication is. I mean, it. I think it comprises the most important aspect of a COE. Okay. Now, continuous business improvement is something that I think I mentioned already. Learn from business. It's important that you understand how business is using your tool. How are they not using your tool, and why are they not using tool? Composite model. Why are they not using composite model? Why are they creating a siloed data set? Right? Are they facing performance issues? Are they facing RLS issues? Believe me, there are tens and thousands of hundreds of cases, scenarios that can be there for not using composite model, for not using best practices, right? How are you guidelines? How have you set your guidelines? Are you allowing people to publish to web? Are you allowing your users to share to external users? How are you actually policing them? How are you auditing them, right? So these are the most important learnings I would take from a COE, and from COE point of view. And in my opinion, yes, COE is important. If you don't want to call a COE, fine. Let's call it a COE central team which can drive adoption. But it's definitely needed for every other tool if you want that tool to be successful, because your organization has invested a lot of amount in that. Remember, they have invested some amount, a huge amount of money to make this a strategic tool. That means they've invested in cloud, where which could retrofit this reporting tool. I would consider it as Azure, because a lot of companies who have taken Power BI definitely depend on Azure, right? Good. Okay, that's all that I had for COE. I know it was short, but I hope, because I did not demo, I wanted to keep it short. And thank you for listening to me. I can have any questions if you want to, or you can always connect me on LinkedIn.